Hey everybody, how's it going? Today is Tuesday the 14th, and we're going to be looking at St. John Paul II's Laborem Exercens, which you can find in the text on page 79 and page 80, when you guys have already done a little bit of work on this one, so it should be relatively familiar. And also the life of John Paul II should be relatively familiar to you as well, since we've watched the Witness to Hope video in class with his involvement with the communists, and important for this encyclical here, with the workers' movements, the solidarity movements, all of these things in Poland. As bishop and as pope. So you've seen quite a bit of that. So I think you're relatively familiar with what John Paul II was up to. But this encyclical was released in 1981. And there's an interesting little story behind the date behind this, and we'll get to that in a few minutes. But from the text, we see over a very long pontificate, 1978 to 2005, if you remember marking that out in your text. 2005, St. John Paul II wrote many encyclical letters, including 4 that were entirely or mostly devoted to Catholic social doctrine. In 1981, on the 90th anniversary of Rerum Novarum, which was written by Leo XIII, he promulgated Laborem Exercens on human work, and the encyclical summarizes the development of social doctrine since Rerum Novarum. Now, usually the anniversary documents that come out, the social justice documents that we have, 1931, 1891, they will come out on May the 15th. And this one didn't. This one did not come out on May the 15th. This one came out on September 14th, 1981. So it was 90 years and then some from the anniversary document or the Rerum Novarum. And why is that the case? It's kind of interesting, but I'll read you a little bit from the actual book that the video that we watched was based on, The Witness to Hope by George Weigel. He starts off with just a little bit of the history of the social encyclical, which can't hurt. Although it traces its intellectual roots back to mid-19th century Germany and France, modern Catholic social doctrine really begins with Pope Leo XIII's 1891 encyclical Rerum Novarum. Pope Pius XI marked this historical document's 40th anniversary in 1931 with the encyclical Quadragesimo Anno. Pope John XXIII extended the tradition of an anniversary encyclical with his 1961 letter Mater et Magistra. John Paul II had intended to continue the custom on Rerum Novarum's 90th anniversary, but that fell on May 15th, 1981, 2 days after the attempt on his life. So during convalescence, the Pope continued to work on the encyclical, and Laborem Exercens on human work was finally published on September 14th, 1981. So he couldn't get it out the normal actual date of May 15th, which is the traditional date, because he was shot 2 days before. But he did manage to get it out by September, and the year 1981 still marking the 90th anniversary. In Laborem Exercens, John Paul II took the discussion of the social question in a more humanistic direction than his papal predecessors, focusing on the nature of work and the dignity of the worker. In this respect, Laborem Exercens is the most tightly focused social encyclical in the history of Catholic social doctrine. It is also the most personal, as John Paul brought his own distinctive experience as a manual laborer to bear in analyzing the moral meaning of human labor. And you might remember when we were watching the video in class, he worked in a quarry. He was breaking rocks with sledgehammers, all under the watchful eye of the Nazis. So he understands the uh, physical qualities of manual labor. And so he's not a diplomat. He's not someone that just has worked with paper all his life. He understands what it means to really get down to some sweaty work. All right, Weigel continues. The most theologically creative sections of Laborem Exercens unfold John Paul's teaching that through work, men and women participate in the very action of the Creator of the universe, in fulfillment of God's initial command to be fruitful and multiply, fill the earth and subdue it. In work, human beings are called to imitate God, and work is a vocation to which human beings have been called from the beginning. Now, your textbook really follows this line of thought very nicely. Laborem Exercens is an extended meditation on the nature and dignity of human labor. Work, according to John Paul II, is intrinsic to human nature. It is distinctively human because God's first commandment to Adam was to subdue the earth from Genesis. Work, then, is also a response to humanity's divine vocation. Human beings work because they are made in the image of God, their Creator, and so they also make things in imitation of their heavenly model. So we see that Weigel and the Catechism and your text are all sort of echoing these ideas. Work is about who we are as well as what we do and produce. Whether it be agricultural, industrial, post-industrial, or artistic labors, workers are above all persons, which means that in work, properly understood, human beings are always becoming more, not just making more. This spiritual and moral character, this subjectivity, gives work its genuine value and gives workers their specific dignity. So becoming more and not just making more, this spiritual and moral character, this subjectivity he speaks of. Weigel is speaking of this, and in your text you see this as well. Laborem Exercens considers work in its objective and subjective dimensions. On the one hand, work is valuable for its products, objective. On the other hand, work is valuable because it is activity that fulfills a divine vocation. Thus, someone can find fulfillment even if they seem to have failed in their professional efforts. Mother Teresa of Calcutta often said that we are called not to be successful, only faithful. We owe God our best human efforts, but we cannot control whether our works will succeed with the market or the critics. So it's very important, this subjective understanding, particularly if you think about John Paul II, L'Equivalenza, the Solidarity movement, what was sort of getting off the ground at this time. Weigel speaks of the support of unions, which is a very important thing to support. Catholic social doctrine had always regarded unions as movements of solidarity